thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. As you know, we're going to be talking about things that you wish you could have learned more about, or had the opportunity to dive into more deeply while you were in school, whether with me or in any of your other classes. So what were your thoughts on that?
So I would have wished that we learned more about mental illnesses and like disorders.
Okay.
More specifically like anxiety, and I would pick tics slash like Tourette's if it's into that category.
Okay. What made you choose that, or what makes you want to learn more about that?
So I personally like suffer from Tourette's or
Okay.
tics. Um, so in fifth grade, I that's when it started to like really peak and get worse, and I kind of thought I was like weird, or like I kind of had like different emotions about it.
Okay.
So I really wanted to. So when I look back at it, I would have wanted to learn about them so that other people would understand, or if other people have them, like they know how to like express themselves and make sure like they feel good about themselves. And if people like if you're twitching or something, then people like don't address it in a weird way that makes you feel uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
So in fifth grade, I was kind of I was weird about it because I felt a little bit uncomfortable myself. I think
Understandable.
I only told like a few people,
Mm-hmm.
and because people would ask, they'd be like, "Hey, is your neck okay?" Or like, "I see you blinking a lot. Is that like, are you okay?" And I'd be like, I get like confused, but I'd say, "Yeah."
Okay.
Um, but it was never really public to anyone. So
Yeah.
more people know now, but
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like people know how to address the situation now. I feel like as you grow up, you start to learn more on how to address certain situations.
So what has your journey been like? So what had to happen for you to feel like, okay, I'm more and more comfortable talking about it now? I know you're saying it's still not necessarily something that everybody knows, but even if you feel more comfortable, I mean, to come on here and talk about it as well, what got you to this place?
What got me to this place was really just kind of just growing up and learning like the real world, and how I see a lot of other people have like tics, and I see it like around, and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is not a weird thing. And then with neurologists, they're like, it's okay. And it's just kind of like just growing up, I know that it's not a weird thing, and it's never weird
Nope.
to have a disorder or mental illness. It's
Nope.
like totally like normal to like
Yep.
suffer from these things, and you shouldn't have to feel bad about yourself.
So have you grown to accept it more about yourself? And do you feel like you've accepted it fully? Are you still working on that?
I feel like I've just fully accepted it. It doesn't really come up a lot because I've also there's ways to learn how to calm it too, with like it can't fully stop ever, but you can sort of like calm it down.
So what were some triggers were there triggers? If so, what were they? And what are the ways that you calm it down?
Um One trigger was actually a lot was stress and anxiety. That's why I
Mm.
also wanted to learn more about anxiety,
Mm.
because I think it is really important. And I know that a lot of people, most of their triggers are from stress. So if you get stressed about, like,
Mm.
for me, the simplest thing could be maybe a test that's coming up, an assignment that I don't really know that much about.
Yep.
I would like get really stressed, and then it would start like happening, like it kind of be more triggering.
So what was happening?
Like so there's these things where like rapid blinking,
Okay.
like neck twitches, or like
Okay.
cracking, like rolling.
Okay.
They kind of calm down like as you go, and the ways to calm them down are I try to so what I do is I focus on something else,
Okay.
and rather I try not to think about it, because if you think about it,
Makes it
then
worse.
it gets worse. Or if someone like points it out too, it gets worse. So I do is so with me, I have kind of like something to think about, like that makes me happy or
You had like
calm.
a go-to thought to go to.
So I
Okay.
think about what makes me happy is dance. So I think about dance,
Okay.
and I kind of like maybe like go over dances in my head or something,
Nice.
and kind of just think about being there and the experience, and I kind of feel more calm. So that's how it works for me. I've been doing it since I was so young. It's just like
Yeah.
the environment, the people, like getting the experience to be with everyone, and it's just all like happy.
And then you talked about anxiety. So what has your experience been with anxiety? What have you learned about anxiety? What would you want others to know about it?
More how to, if someone has it, like
Mhm.
how they, if it's their friend that has it, how they can help them, or how they can like help them, like guide them, maybe like not point it out, but just if something's going wrong, like,
Hmm.
hey, like know the right things to say,
Yeah.
or for the people who do have it, how to deal with it,
Hmm.
and how to like just like, yeah, so they feel better. And also, I think personally, I think talking about it makes you feel better about yourself.
Yeah,
So like
I
that's what I
agree.
personally think.
I do think anxiety is the type of thing that it's becoming more and more common now to talk about and
Mhm.
be more comfortable with it. What are some things that you would say to someone with anxiety or to not to say to someone with anxiety?
I probably just I just reassure them, like make
Mm,
sure I check, well, I usually myself, I check up on people like every day just to see how they are in general. But I would also like if something's wrong and I see them like stressing, kind of like I just like to let people know that like
mm.
I can always be there for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, I think anxiety, and tell me what you think, is usually linked to control or lack of control.
Mhm.
And that's when anxiety builds up in us, is when we feel like we don't have control of a situation, or we feel like we don't know what's going to happen in a situation. And maybe our mind is leaning us towards a negative result or outcome. So maybe reminding the person that it's, as you said, it's going to be okay. And you're okay in this moment.
Mhm.
Um, and trying to give them a little bit of that control back, which makes sense because in dance, I think you have a lot of control.
Yeah.
I think that probably ties in a little bit as well. Had to narrow it down to, let's say, three things, whether it's between the tics or the Tourette's and the anxiety. What would three main things be that you think should be highlighted in the classroom? And maybe do, before you even answer that, if you want to explain to the audience who may not know, because I don't, there's a range of people who might watch this, what Tourette's is and what tics might even be.
Okay, so Tourette, like it's, oh, so it's like things that people like they say or do and they just can't control it.
Mm,
Like so they can't control the things they say or do. So if something accidentally like slips out of their mouth, like
mm,
they can't control that and it like rapidly happens.
mm-hmm,
So that's more of like Tourette's if it's like worse, but
mm-hmm,
tics can be more minor.
mm-hmm,
So it's just like neck twitching, like just any twitching, rapid blinking,
mm-hmm,
as I said.
mm-hmm.
A lot of people actually have it and you like may not know.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And so like definitely I would just say if you see someone doing something and kind of like don't really never address them, like never really say anything about it, be like, "Hey, what are you doing like with your neck or something?"
Yeah,
Because
I
then it
think
makes
that's
them feel worse about like themselves.
self-conscious, right?
Mhm,
Yeah.
and then they get like, because I know some people that are younger, they get all like they can kind of feel like they can kind of feel weird about
Yeah.
it, and they can be like,
Like an
"Oh,"
outsider.
and then it gets like, and then it starts getting worse and worse, and also it's kind of just like it also like hurts your own body. Like if you do a
Mm,
lot of neck stuff, it your neck really starts to hurt.
that makes sense.
So yeah, it starts to like hurt yourself too. So
You
it's
have to
not
be
really
mindful
good.
of that. I think what you're
Yeah.
saying is just general being polite anyways. Usually you shouldn't be
Mhm.
commenting towards other people like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And also it's good for I imagine for the person who may be experiencing it to remember that, no, I'm not weird. And no, this is not something for me to be conscious of, which I'm sure is much easier said than done when you're very young.
Yeah.
Because when you're that age, especially, you don't want to stand out in any way. That's, out of the norm, whatever that really is.
Mhm.
So yeah, going back to the other question about three things, if you had to highlight between those two topics, what do you think you would highlight?
About anxiety, I would highlight like how it affects people's learning also because you're in school.
Yep.
So it greatly affects learning. So that's like a
Okay.
huge part. For like disorders, definitely Tourette's, and then how, like in general, maybe just like combine the two, like how to help people
Mm,
with like how to help people with illnesses or disorders or like those specific ones.
okay. Do
Um,
you feel like when you were in fifth grade, if that was something you were learning about, do you think that it would have made you more self-conscious because you were the person they were talking about? Or would it have made you feel like, okay, I feel good because at least it's being addressed?
I think if I was still in fifth grade, I would think that I would feel a little bit like at least people know what this is about.
Okay.
So then if they ever see anything, then I can just then they know what's happening and they know what to do.
Okay.
So I think I'd feel better about it.
Good. What have you learned through this whole experience for yourself, whether it's with relationships with friends, with family, about who you are, your confidence, your acceptance of yourself? What are some things you've learned from this?
Um, I've learned just to really like accept myself. Don't make myself like think that I'm like weird.
Good.
Like, because I remember in like fifth grade, I was like, okay, I think I'm kind of weird with this. And I would like be a little bit upset and I'd be like,
Mm,
Mom, like I feel kind of like weird. And she's like, it's okay.
yeah,
So reassurance and kind of just growing up, I feel better about myself, more confident,
good,
definitely.
good.
That's what I would describe myself.
Okay. Very good. I'm really happy to hear that. Also, being a little weird never hurt anybody.
Yeah.
We all have to own our weird. I think that's what it is, right? And as long as we own
Yeah.
whatever it is, I think it's good. And as you're getting older, I know you're saying that you kind of matured, and that's what has helped you.
And then I remember, I think it was sixth grade. Yeah, sixth grade. We had to pick a topic and write like an article about it.
Hmm.
And so I personally chose anxiety because I wanted to learn more about it because I never got the
Yep.
chance to learn about it.
When did you first learn that word?
I want to estimate like maybe like late third, like fourth
So
grade.
young. Okay.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I'd always be stressed, and then, but I'd always use the word stress, and then
Okay.
want to be like, it's anxiety.
Got it. So then you did a research paper on that in sixth grade.
Yeah, I did, and then I was like, oh, and I got a lot of information out of that, and it kind
Hmm.
of made me feel better, and I was like, okay, so I know like these true stories of people,
Mm.
like because we had to do a true story part, and I was like, okay, so this is a true story of something that happened to someone and
Yeah.
how it affected their lives,
Yeah.
and
Common thread I'm noticing is that mental health, first of all, comes up quite often, and also that the fact that you guys don't get an opportunity to really talk about it. So
yeah.
it's kind of like you talk around it, but you don't really ever get to dive really deeply into it. Do you think that the age has something to do with it? Like, do you think that if you and your peers were to sit in a room with an adult, like a teacher,
Mhm.
you would be willing to be that open about some of these issues? What do you think about that?
Um, I personally think like that it should like you should be able to talk about it, and I really don't think that there should be like an age limit or like
Mm,
if you're young and as you grow up and you still don't know about it, it can kind of like you can kind of it can cause like damage, I guess,
yeah,
because you
especially.
don't know what's going on. So I think that maybe like at a younger age too, it's just better to learn about it if you start off a simpler way, just explaining like these
Yep.
like emotions, like if you what you did in fifth grade, if you started that like at a younger age maybe, and then bring it up more, I think that it should be something people openly talk about because I know a lot of people also like suffer from like anxiety or like any mental disorders or anything, um,
Absolutely.
and people like they hide it or like they don't know what to do. So I think talking about it would make it better and like open to people. So like,
I
yeah,
agree. I couldn't agree more because to me, what I think is scary, the scariest scenario to me is when people are feeling it and they're unaware of it, right?
yeah,
Because it's one thing to say, "Oh, I'm feeling this type of way. I don't know what it's called, but I can say I'm feeling this way." But to me, it's what's the scariest scenario is when people are, experiencing a certain type of mental disorder or illness or challenge, but they're walking around thinking that that's normal.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So because of lack of maybe exposure or awareness or openness about talking about it. So, and I think all of us go through that at different stages where you're like, what am I feeling right now? Or
yeah.
you meet somebody and then you're like, oh, I've experienced that too. Wait, I didn't realize that was what that was. So I completely agree with you. Thank you so much. Was there anything else that you wanted to share that you didn't get to?
Not really.
Okay.
That's
Well, I really
it.
appreciate you talking to me.
It was nice
Of
to talk
course.
to you.
You too. Tell your sister I said hi.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.